You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
Step ahead of the fence. Royce is in. Royce is shot. Royce. That's it. Hey, what a champion. He's in a race to get back. Beckham is going to try it over the halfway line. And he's still heading up the net. What a goal from David Beckham.
You are listening to the MLS Postgame Show, live on SPN Radio, powered by the Sports Podcasting Network.
Wondolowski settles, drives, he scores! Wondo does it again, 1-1. Way off left side. And left again far side, and it's 1-0. And the shutout streak of the Red Bulls is over, and so is the streak of games without a goal from Marco Caballo.
And good day, good night, and welcome to the MLS Postgame Show, live every Sunday, 1 a.m. I'm your host, Kevin Laramee, and it is the weekend of the penalty. And in the famous words of Oprah, a penalty for you, and a penalty for you. No, a penalty for you, and a penalty for you, a penalty for you, and a penalty for you. That's how the weekend went in Major League Soccer. We'll start with the first game where there wasn't any penalties, but before that, we are going to go to the studio line. If you want to give us a call, 1-802-731-0131, free everywhere in North America, 1-802-731-0131. Give us a call. Let us know how you feel about the weekend's results. How did your team turn out? Did you get a favorable result? Did you get your rear end ended to you? That's the question. We'll start with the first game. Saturday, New York City FC at Yankee Stadium versus the Montreal Impact. And every time I watch a game at Yankee Stadium, I have the famous song by The Who, Pinball Wizard, playing through my mind, It is very interesting, to not say different, almost different sport, to watch this game, but many games at Yankee Stadium. But you know what? I'm not saying it's not entertaining. It is entertaining. It is very entertaining to watch games at Yankee Stadium. So there's that. But we saw great games, great control. Patrice Bernier. Wow. In his last season in Major League Soccer, after 3 games, all right, we'll dismiss the first one. It was a terrible performance, not as a whole by Patrice Bernier, but the team, the midfield. In the first game, the team as a whole was a bad way to start the season. But for the second game in a row, Patrice Bernier and the Montreal Impact midfield had a stunner of a game. The way they created chances, moving the ball, trying to find with pinpoint accuracy Dominic Argiro at the edge of the box where he controlled it and got the equalizer late in the game. But it was a Montreal Impact team too that got lucky at some instances in that game. David Villa not having his knife sharpened enough, if you can excuse my expression. He didn't have the best game. Yes, he was great. He created some great chances, great looks, but he didn't have it dialed in. The goal wasn't dialed in. It was not easy to find for David Villa in that game, which was probably due to the way Montreal Impact were playing in defense, trying to get the ball a little deeper for them. Created, but Patrice Bernier was playing a little higher. Malice and Bernardello a little deeper with the late injury with Marco Donadel. According to him, he felt something in the warm-up, and it was a decision to start Callum Malice. Instead, Callum Malice did have a decent game as well, have some great link-up play, but not anything specific. He didn't stand out in that game. So that being said, if you don't stand out in a game at the Yankee Stadium, you're doing something right, because it's the type of place where either you can get exposed or you expose somebody. So that happened very well. Montreal were lucky. Again, a few instances where New York missed the net by just a few feet, and it was such a game. It's such a game of inches. The one point that's very positive for Montreal as well, it's the discipline, the Montreal Impact defense. And you can read my article where I touch about it. It's a short article on CanadianSoccerNews.com where I talk about everybody's happy with 3 points on the road. And that's 3 points. What am I saying? The 1 point. Still victories for the Montreal Impact. But the 1 point in New York City is a positive result. And for New York, a team that just put 4 goals against DC United last week, they were only kept to 1. And Montreal were able to actually almost get a win here. Late in the game, Montreal were applying pressure and they went for it. We saw Adrian Aregi with his first few positive touches for the Montreal Impact, creating some great link-up play further on up the pitch. And you had a Jackson making a late substitution in to kill off the rest of the game that was very successful. And you had a very difficult position that Daniel Levitz found himself in. He came in at the 89th minute with basically the job of the dirty job of killing the game, fouling when it's time, having the ball go out of play, playing the dirty type of play, basically, that you kind of need to eke out a draw on the road in a hostile environment. Hostile not because the fans are on top of you, because that's not really the case. Hostile because it's a different type of pitch that you're actually playing on. So that being said, Montreal are happy with the 1 point on the road. Could have been better. Still opportunity missed where Montreal late in the game were able to get some chances but weren't able to finish when they were putting that pressure late. So that might come back to haunt some in the end of the season. We'll see. But for now, Montreal 2 draws, 1 defeat this season, but two draws in a row, 1 at home, 1 on the road. They should have won last week in Seattle. Should have, could have, didn't this week. Maybe they should have lost, but they got that draw and could even have been a victory if everything else would have fallen into place for the Montreal Impact. Moving on to a team that's continuing to beat some, not expectations, because everybody had expectations, but it's kind of like a confirmation. Like, we saw the lineup, we saw those players, we didn't know them all of them, but we knew some, and we were able to predict some success. But Atlanta lost their first game now, 2 wins in a row, 10 goals in 2 games. That's 11 in 3. It's a record for an expansion team. Brendan Vincent, an own goal, got lucky. Chicago player scored in his own net in the 4th minute. And then at the 11th, there's now an obvious goal opportunity for Chicago. Johan Kappelhoff gets sent off at the 11th minute, given Atlanta a man advantage for 80 minutes. But it took Atlanta 15 minutes to actually muster a goal. They did have a lot of shots, 6 on target, 14 shots total, 1 block, 7 off. A lot of corners, a lot of crosses in. Atlanta was trying to get the ball in the box and to finish it using their man advantage and having that advantage in the box. It's a very fair tactic, but it took a little bit of time to work and to secure the 3 points for Atlanta. Joseph Martinez again, a brace this time. First one assisted by Miguel Almiron, of course, at the 60th minute. 67th minute, Hector Villalba for Atlanta for their 3rd, and to finish off the goal tally of the day for Atlanta at the 82nd minute, Joseph Martinez again. His 5th of the season. That's crazy. Assisted by Yamil Hassad. 1 goal, 1 assist on the year for Yamil, the first ever scorer for Atlanta United. Last week, I've talked about a lot of early yellows on the MLS postgame show. It wasn't the case this week. It wasn't the case in the Montreal game. There was early red here, you could say, but it seems to be some, there's even a way to say it, little lack a little bit more looseness in the referees. A lot of PKs, though. We'll talk. We're getting to the PKs. Yeah, we're getting to the PKs. So less yellow, but more PKs. Yeah, that might be the case this week. But it's interesting to keep an eye on the refereeing this season with the future implementation and trial of video assistant referee. It's something we'll be talking about more. And those are the instances where some PKs were called where you can Jordan Morris kind of dives, but kind of dove. But other ones were legitimate. The game in Houston, two handball calls in that game. One on Houston was at the edge of the box. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. So now Atlanta 4, Chicago 1. 0 actually, but they didn't win. They won a few games before. So for Chicago, it's tough break. You had a tough break there. Early red card on the road against a sell-out Atlanta crowd of over close to 50,000. So a lot of records broken for Atlanta United over their last two games of play in their inaugural season in Major League Soccer. Toronto FC going cross-country to Vancouver for a Canadian derby. Newcomer Victor Vasquez opened up the score late in the game, but Brek Shea on the yellow just lost his mind. Got another yellow, got sent off. 70th minute. Unsporting behavior for Brek Shea. Back to back, you're gone. You lost your mind. It's going to happen now next week. Just go watch the highlight and let me know what you think. I'll leave it there. So once Toronto got the man up at the 70th minute, 8 minutes later, Victor Vasquez, assisted by Josie Altidore and Raheem Edwards. Javenko was not even in the 11, if I'm not mistaken, in this game. No, I believe it did not even make the trip. So that's what we talked about on Soccer Today last week, and that's all well and good for Toronto. You save some time. You save some legs, some travel, some exhaustion. You leave Javenko at home and try to make it better. 45-minute plays for Alphonso Davies. He started the game, got subbed off. It's probably just to ease up on the kid. He's going to have the King Championship soon. He played in the Champions League. They fared off pretty well. They lost 2-0 in Pachuca, but those are type of Pachuca. Yeah, no, Tigres. Pachuca with Dallas, and Dallas got the 2-1 win there. They lost 2-0 against Tigres. So Champions League in mind, you only play Davies 45, all well and good. Montero 74, Mesquita 74. It's another defeat for Vancouver, you could say. But they had the 2 reds in 2 weeks. So there's that. Discipline might be a problem. Last week was kind of a fluke. This week is clearly a discipline problem. Brek, what the Brek? What the Brek, man? What the Brek? Hashtag what the Brek. But Josie Altidore with a very nice goal, the 80th minute, to seal off the victory, assisted by Canadian international Jonathan Osorio. Big win for TFC, the first of the season. They had 2 draws to start the season now. 2 draws and 1 win. You're talking about a pretty decent beginning of the season. If you would have said 5 points out of 9, pretty much every team in MLS would take it to start the season, especially on the road. So now moving on to a very weird game. Columbus versus DC United at RFK Stadium. First of all, it always looks weird. It looks good. It's fun to see the Barra Brava and all the supporters on the sideline at RFK, which is it's going to be different when their stadium is finished to be building it. The ground has been broken. But that's where the PK started. The weekend of the PK started with Columbus at RFK at DC United. 30th minute, Federico Higuain. Ola Kamara was tripped in the box. Clear foul. Point to the spot. Higuain buries a PK. Now the 66th, but that's not fair. The way they were brought down is because of the blink of play that everybody was kind of wondering what where Columbus was going. We're very narrow formation, like a 4-1-2-1 to 4-2, like a 4-1-2-1, so something similar to that. And it was very narrow, so we weren't wondering what's going to happen. But yeah, they got beat a few times on the wings, but DC United were never able to capitalize from it. But when you're looking at the few times that they did, well, it happened more than a few times. But the great things that Columbus were able to do in that game is create that 1-2 passing and having Higuain to Camara to overlap both each other and having Camara all open in the box, get tripped up, PK, Higuain buries it. Gets pushed by Birnbaum once again, as Birnbaum was on both. Not even a yellow, by the way, on both situation. But there were clear fouls, and they just happened to be on the box. So that is a penalty. Penalty weekend started here. So we have two right here. All Kamara was like push off a little bit, nudged off the ball, but enough to create him to fall, like create enough momentum for him to fall. Once he fell, it's like a clear foul. Too bad it's in the box. And when there's a fall in the back, when there's a foul in the box, doesn't matter if it's a minor foul or a red card offense. It's a penalty. 66th minute, Ola Kamara of Columbus. Second goal of the game for the Crew. First win of the season. A few yellows as well. Ian Harks, Lloyd Sam for DC United, and Marcelo Sarvas, all with a yellow. Harrison Awful. Now, I'm not making any jokes here. Harrison Awful, Columbus gets a yellow card. Same for Josh William. It's yellows. We'll keep an eye because yellow accumulation comes in pretty fast, and pretty fast. What you starting next week, I believe we're going to have players on a potential yellow card watch, so we'll keep an eye on it. Orlando, after having a surprise break last week due to Storm Stella, she did not get her groove back in New England. Wasn't that bad, but she did pretty much have her groove when she went in the rest of the Northeast. Yours truly was pretty much buried here in Montreal. Hope you weren't on that highway, people, because those were terrible 12 hours. Orlando, Philly. Orlando looked pretty good. Kyle Aaron, 2 goals. CJ Sapong, 2 goals in 2 weeks for the Philadelphia Union player. Back-to-back goals. That's pretty impressive. If you're looking at the Philadelphia Union, they do need goals if they want to repeat their season, the regular season success of last year. This time around, it wasn't meant to be on the road. Kyle Aaron with a brace. Both goals were the first one with a great pass by Rivas, a play that was created by Spector, found Rivas. Rivas went on the side, very close, like a low cross to the 6-yard box where Kyle Aaron was all alone. Tap it in. It wasn't defended properly, and the goalkeeper of Philadelphia was mad as you know what, because he felt his defender should have been on that ball, and the defender was Onyeu, who wasn't really tracking back fast enough to cover Kyle Aaron. But hey, who can? It's Kyle Aaron, one if not the best first round draft pick overall in Major League Soccer. And hey, Canadian kid, good on you, Kyle, with that brace. And the second goal for Orlando came at the 73rd minute, assisted by Matias Perez Garcia. Kyle Aaron had a great game. He was at the right place at the right time, and against all odds, it's clicking for Orlando. Nocerino, which last year was pretty much no Nocerino, and this year's pretty much damn right Nocerino. And Nocerino has been a catalyst, especially in this game. Leadership in the midfield, creating those key passes that leads to decisive play. That's what he has been doing, especially in this game. So for Nocerino, pretty good second year in Major League Soccer. Hopefully it continues for the Lions, which against all odds, like I was talking about, are thriving without Kaká. Now, another game which had some PK glory this time around, New England, which did have a week off last week due to Stella again, because they were supposed to play at home versus Orlando. At the 10th minute, Lee Wen buries the penalty for New England. It's 1-0. And it took 60 minutes for Dallas to answer back. It's understandable. They had a very tough week with a trip down. Or I think they were on the road. So to Pachuca. And they got Pachuca just a bit outside Mexico City, Ciudad de Mexico. If I'm not mistaken, my Mexican geography is not probably up to date. And I know it doesn't really change, so it's probably not up to par. 71st minute, Maximiliano Urruti, second goal of the week, having scored in the Champions League again. He decided to do a brace this time around, so 2 goals in 8th minute for Urruti for the win for Dallas at home. Continuing their great season, unbeaten yet in Major League Soccer and in the CONCACAF Champions League knockout stage. So FC Dallas are quite on a run, and with the amount of games they have played over the last few weeks, they're continuing their run, and that is due to the great roster movement in and out of the starting 11 by Oscar Pereira. He manages his roster perfectly. The results would indicate that. So great continuing of performance week in, week out for Dallas. And that's what you want, that's what you hope, and that's what you get when you talk about the FC Dallas. Now, moving on to Kansas City at the Cauldron. Sorry about that. Benny Faulhaber with a cracker of a goal. In his own words, he shook the cobwebs and was able to get that first goal for Kansas City in this game, assisted by who else but Mr. Sporting KC himself, Graham Zusi. David Bingham with an home goal at the 89th minute for Kansas City, but by San Jose. But the Goonies showed some fight with a goal at the 91st minute. Florian Jungwirth, assisted by Daniel Osen and Bal Godoy. And Bal Godoy, 2 goals, 1 assist so far this season. Quite a performance so far by the young player for the Earthquakes. We won't belabor here. So a good home win for Kansas City. They're looking pretty decent this year. Seem to have found the fight that this team, coached by Peter Vermes, had about 3 years ago. Seems to be at least on the road there. That belief that it can beat anybody at any given time in Major League Soccer seems to have come back. And another game where PK happened, and some history here for Minnesota on the road. Colorado, yeah, it started pretty similar than the other game. Early goal at 17th minute, Dominic Badji of the Colorado Rapids buried the ball for the Rapids to open up the score against Minnesota. But for then a good span of time, things were looking green, gloom and doom again. We're wondering like, damn, it's going to be maybe 2-3 goals, and maybe Minnesota's not going to perform well again, and people are going to talk about again, oh, is Minnesota the worst team in MLS history? We don't know yet. Who can really tell? There's no way to prove that. It's just talking. I know. I kind of agree. So, but no, things were meant to be different. 50th minute foul in the box. Minnesota gets themselves a PK again. PK this weekend. Kevin Molino buries it. And Minnesota's all tied on the road. It only generated 7 shots in the old games, though, but we'll talk about this later. And then at the 58th minute, I can't do it. Da, 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 da. Superman came in and got the first lead of Minnesota United's history in Major League Soccer. But the lead lasted pretty much as long as me singing the Superman song right there. And before you know it, Colorado ties it up and finishes 2-2. He wasn't meant to be. Minnesota wasn't meant to have that win at Dick's Sporting Goods. But, all right, they got their first point. Better result than everybody expected. 2-2. Who would have thought a Colorado game would have 4 goals scored in it? Hey, who knew? Things are changing. Times are changing. A lot of yellows in that game. And by the way, a red card for Justin Davis. At the 70th minute, he got sent off on 2 yellows. So Minnesota, turns out they did pretty well on the road, even though it wasn't easy. At times it was not, it was quite reminiscent of the first 2 weeks, but they did pretty much well. When you mentioned that, like I mentioned, they showed some fight and they were able to get the point. It could have been more, but we're so excited to get that lead, and they got burned. Just a few games left. Again, if you are listening live, you can give us a call. 102 731 0131 here on the MLS Post Game Show. By the way, you can follow me on Twitter at Kev Laramee and follow the account of Soccer Today, which you can listen to, by the way, all week long this week at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific on sportspodcastnetwork.com. Click on Soccer Today and you can listen live right there every day, 10 a.m. This week, yours truly and Dwayne Rollins will be live talking about MLS, Champions League, Premier League, the Europa League. It was lost Thursday. We didn't really have a chance to talk about it. But let's go back to MLS. And let's go back to a game that is not going to go down in history as the best game ever, but it is a first win for the LA Galaxy in 2017 on the road in RSL. Not an easy place to play, but RSL is not looking like they used to be, but it happened. 2 goals in 6 minutes, and it wasn't meant to be. RSL got their lead early on, 18th minute, got a goal. Were able to hold to that lead and look pretty much down at some point, but LA being LA did show some fight at the end, and they did have a lot of passes together at the end of the game. They actually doubled almost the passing of RSL. RSL are defending at home sometimes. They only have 5 shots, 3 on targets though, 2 off target for RSL. A lot of crosses in and corners. But RSL is not in a position where it's easy to get the ball in front of the net and score. And for like a player to like Cal Beckham to get 2 yellows in 10 minutes and get sent off all for hard tackles, it's kind of weird. Like it's not doesn't really happen usually. That's not what happens in Salt Lake. Usually you see the Dreads do something positive. What's going on? I'm not saying there's a discipline problem or something going on, but the team, the way it's built, it's not 2010 anymore. Missing some pieces here. When I say pieces, I'm talking about attacking pieces. So we'll see where RSL and LA, will that win put them back on tracks? And they have a lot of key pieces, but it wasn't gelling so far, and nobody's really was really convinced. And this performance, it's a win. It's a win on the road. It's a win in RSL. Is it a convincing performance by the Galaxy? The jury is still out on LA's performance so far this season. And now, only 2 games left in Major League Soccer to talk about this week. We're going to a cracker of a game. 5 goals scored, 2 PKs, handball, great goals, and great fight even though they were defeated by Houston. Yeah, I guess it's kind of the week where things went back to normal, where San Jose lost and Houston lost, and teams that are supposed to lose lost, like Chicago. Maybe it's the week where it got back to how we expected it to be in Major League Soccer. The 11th minute, Diego Valerio bears that PK for a handball on Houston. It was a handball. Yeah, he was barely in the box by like not even a foot. But he touched it with his elbow and started protecting. And we'll see the same thing pretty much happen later on. But so fair penalty. And then later on, it's a free kick by Houston. Kubo Torres hits a beautiful free kick and it hits the wall. But then the referee, Ted Uncle, points the spot. Burp, goes to the Uncle, calls it. And when you replay is shown, you look at the replay. Well, yeah, the guy trying to protect his face because the ball was coming at him. And yeah, he put his arm in front of his face. And yeah, the ball touched his arm. And yeah, it's a penalty. Not again. I'm like, it's a good call. If I was the guy, I would have probably done the same thing. But maybe that's why I'm not playing at that level. You have two choices right there. You let the ball hit you right in the noggin at full velocity, hit by Kubo Torres, but 10 yards in front of you. Or you raise your hand and you protect your face. Who can blame the guy? Who can blame? I don't even know who. There was it happened so fast for Portland. I didn't have time to double check, but for Portland, I would have done the same. It's just tough break, 1-1. And then Romo Kyoto, that's on the road by the way for Houston. Romo Kyoto gets a chance and buries it in extra time, first half. And before you know it, Houston's going back to the dressing room with a 2-1 lead. Kind of impressive. And this game was very open, a lot of chances by both sides. Houston did show some fight. But then, being 1 goal down, Diego Valerio buries it. So then it's all tied once again. Then you have David Guzman. Buries it again. Boom. And Fernando Adi at the 80th minute for a good measure. Assisted by Guzman. So Guzman had himself a pretty good game. It finishes 4-2 at the end. But even though they got scored 4 times, Houston did show a lot of potential. So Houston may not end up being bottom dwellers. They might be a little higher. They might end up being bottom dwellers, losing games like this one. Entertaining. Yeah. You have to say that was an entertaining one. But can Houston go back to their winning ways of just last week? I believe so. I believe there's potential there. I believe it because I think Alex was either suspended or injured for this one. Not. But let me just check here. No, Alex did play. But that trio or that duo of Kubo Torres and Romel Kyoto has been impressive. Not that we're not expected. We expected those 2 players to show up in 2017. To that extent, probably not. That's why Houston are probably going to finish higher than predicted by most of pundits or most of your pools out there, if you do have such a thing as a MLS regular season standing pools. So now the last game, the only game that happened on Sunday, was again another great game. Some controversy on the Jordan Morris dive at the 28th minute that led to the Clint Dempsey goal. It was a dive. You can't really dismiss that. But even if it wasn't, it would have been a foul. So you kind of have to call it. I would have probably called it too. Then do you want to use the video assistant replay in the future to use that and to see it all from all angles? I don't know. It's kind of hard. Yeah, we all know that the guy helped himself and he launched himself and receiver. We all wondered if it was legit. There is some contact by Robles. Robles had a terrible game, by the way. Not that he was terrible, but Seattle could have scored 2-3 more goals just by lobbing the ball correctly when Robles was caught out of position. Yeah, it's not his fault. His midfield loses the ball close to net, and there's a turnover, and he's caught out of position because he's the one who launched. that ball to begin with to launch the attack, and he's used to build up play and move higher to use to build the play and give the block a chance to start their build up a little higher on the field, which is a fair tactic, and it led to a great beginning of the season before this game for the Rebels. This time around, worked up against them because they lost that key ball possession, ball control, especially in that key pass from the keeper where he's out of position to defend. If that key pass is successful, but you lose the ball right away, there's a turnover, leaves your goalkeeper wide open for being chipped, for having the ball being attempted on net. And if it wasn't, and there's even one point where it was a player of the Red Bulls jumped up, a little nudged a little bit, and it almost fell in. You have that lucky break for New York where they didn't go in, but that penalty by Clint Dempsey did. Then Bradley Wright Phillips with a great finish of a play to lead to the tying goal at the 57th minute, but it wasn't meant to be. Jordan Morris, a great play, by the way. Harry Shipp scored in the 79th minute, by the way. Harry Shipp has found himself once again. I don't know if it was the Canadian situation, if it was the way the Montreal Impact's locker room, the Montreal Impact's system, tactical, what his role was, what Montreal thought they would have in him, and they didn't when they got him early last training camp. So, didn't work out in Montreal. Couldn't find his comfort zone, which led to, like, again, it's a Chicago kid, born and raised, happy in Chicago, was having the dream life for a guy raised in his city, loving this MLS team, and eventually playing for this team. Everything went good, and boom, gets traded, and things change, and he's now in a different country and a different language. Part of it, you can still live in English pretty well. That's will break some false perception of Montreal. Yes, it's better if you speak French. But if you're stubborn about it, then you really just want to live in English, it's very possible to just do so too. If you're nice about it, people will be nice about it. Harry Shipp scored at the 79th minute. Jordan Morris at the 66th. For a first win at home this season, it was a home opener where they raised the banner. A great tifo, by the way, by the Emerald City supporters. Impressive tifo, the size of the tifos of Portland and Seattle this year. And there were other great tifos, but the size and the sheer amount of detail and hours and hours and hours of work, like hundreds. You can probably count some of them in thousands if man hour. It's crazy. Felipe had a few chances on goal, and of course, the Felipe duo. You get chances and yellows. That's what you get with Felipe. But underrated players for sure in Major League Soccer, Felipe. Before when his Montreal career, and now with New York. And seems like a lifetime ago Felipe was in Montreal, and it's all in his favor. Seems like the Montreal Impact player, once they leave, well, still just a few cases. Some of them didn't get really better chances. Andrew Wenger did play some minutes for Houston this weekend too. Speaking of former Montreal Impact players. But it's never really like Harry Shipp performing well, and we see the Felipe performing well in New York. Sometimes it's just pure coincidence too. You have the right situation, the right persons to help you along, and in New York it was Jesse Marsh welcoming Felipe in open arms and having a plan for the way he wants to use Felipe. And we've seen Felipe scored the most amount of goals from far away last year in Major League Soccer, with goals like he almost did this time around. It was stopped by Fry. You saw that bounce perfectly, and he was able to stop it. But you do see Felipe taking attempts from 25 yards, 30 yards out. And yeah, he's actually timing the bounce, and you never know when he can go in. And it's a skill into itself. So, but it wasn't meant to be for New York. First defeat of the season, this time on the road. But it's against the defending, reigning MLS Cup champions, the Seattle Sounders, which, by the way, they raised the banner, and it was quite a celebration in Seattle. Hope you enjoyed this show. Oh, yeah, forgot. Now, we're 2 weeks in. It's time 2 weeks in for the standing part. So it's no point looking at the standings after the first week, people. I told you. What do you want to know? But now, week 3, standings. Against all odds, top of the East, Atlanta United. They have 6 points, 11 goals for, 3 goals against, for a differential of 8. Atlanta, number 1. Orlando, second in the Eastern Conference, 6 points them as well. Only 2 games played. Goals for 3, positive differential of 2. So they are second, tied at 6 points for third, though, because of a differential of 0. 4 goals for, 4 goals against for the Red Bulls in third position. Toronto FC in fourth with 5 points. New York City fourth as fifth with 4 points. Columbus sixth with 4 points as well. Chicago Fire 4 points for a 7th position in the standings in the Eastern Conference. Montreal Impact 8th with 2 draws for 2 points. Union 9th with 2 points. DC United 10th with 1 point. And the Revolution pointless. Only 1 goal this season so far for a differential of -2. But they only played twice. They have a game that they need to play back, and that will be later down the road this season. So that is the Eastern Conference to finish the show this week in the MLS postgame show. The Western Conference standings. Portland Timbers are first in the West, 9 points. And FC Dallas with 7. Houston in third with 6. San Jose in fourth with 6 points as well. Sorry about that. Live radio, people. San Jose, 6 points. Sporting Kansas City, 5th with 5 points. And the Seattle Sounders, reigning defending MLS Cup champions, 6th with 4 points. Colorado Rapids, 7th with 4. LA Galaxy, 8th with 3. There only 1 goal differential, which explains why Seattle is over the Rapids in the standings, but both are on 4 points with 3 games played in 2017. The Galaxy, 8 with 3 points. Vancouver, 1 point. That 1 draw. Seattle, 9 with 1 point as well. And Minnesota United, last in the Western Conference, 11th, but they got a point. So 11th and 9 is quite close. But because of their -9 differential, that's going to be tough to overcome. So as much as Atlanta is positive with their +8 differential, Minnesota and Atlanta couldn't be at further part of the spectrum, at further extremities of the spectrum in Major League Soccer right now. Atlanta, the hottest team in the league, you could say, in Minnesota, quite literally the coldest. You can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Laramee. You can listen to every show we do on the network at sportspodcastingnetwork.com. You can follow as well the show on iTunes. And if you look for the Sports Podcasting Network, you have all the shows we do, the soccer shows, Hardwood Radio. You have as well Five Rings Podcast, A League of Their Own, a rugby podcast about Toronto Wolfpack, which are the first ever transatlantic professional team in any sports. So that is very interesting. But you can follow us on Twitter at SportsPodNet and myself, Kevin Laramee, at Kev Laramee. If you want to give us an email to let us know what you think about the show, about your team, about anything concerning Major League Soccer, let us know. mlspostgameshow@gmail.com. And until next week for the postgame show, but until Monday morning, 10 a.m. for Soccer Today, well, I'm Kevin Laramee, and have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.